As I promised you last time, we are going to get out of the nouns and pronouns thing. We'll get back into the verb. Now, verbs are a very fascinating thing, and we're going to get some more forms in this chapter and then in succeeding chapters. So we'll stay with the verb now through chapter 16. So this time we're doing the present, middle, and passive indicative. We've already had the active, now we'll use the middle and passive. We also learned something about epo with the genitive, the dative of means, deponent verbs, and so forth. Now, I made a promise, I kept a promise. Here we are on the verbs. However, I'm going to make another promise, and that is that very soon now, in one of these lessons, we're going to have a Greek chorus. And if I can talk the camera crew into helping me, we may even have them singing it. But if nobody else will sing it, I promise you or threaten you, I'm going to sing it myself. So, with that in mind, rejoicing we go into lesson 10 in the vocabulary. Paragraph 108, page 57 of Machen, and there is nothing in the workbook that is in a particular page of the workbook. We'll be going to several pages as we go through. Page 57, Machen. Allah means but. It's a stronger adversative than the, and it means the but is always a coordinating conjunction. Akuo, I hear. Now he says akuo may take the genitive. So it may take the accusative as its direct object, and that's what he's talking about. When he says takes the genitive, he means it will take the genitive as its direct object. So it can have either the genitive or the accusative as direct object. Amartelos, o, a sinner. Apokrinome, I answer. It takes the dative. Artico, I rule, takes the genitive. In the middle, artico means I begin. So artico me means I begin. I would take that as another vocabulary word. Article me, I begin. Yinome, I become. Now, yinome takes the predicate nominative, or the noun, the nominative case, as does imi. So, or imi. Yinome, I become, takes the predicate nominative. Di erikame, I go through. Is erikame, I go in. Ex erikame, I go out. And then erikame, I come or go. Now, stop a minute. Erkame means I come or go. If you put the in front of it, I go through. Put an in, is in front of it, I go in. X in front of it, I go out. So erkame, once you know erkame, you have the others all squared away. Ot means that or because. Now ot is a subordinating conjunction, and we'll get now into clauses that modify, and we'll talk about that in a little while. U, when it's before vowel is uk, and before rough breathing it's uk with a he, means not. U is not. Porevome, I go. Sozo, I save. And epo with the genitive means by, or with the accusative it means under. That's the vocabulary of this lesson. And then we will need to explain what we mean by voice before we go to look at the forms. Voice is, remember, the relationship between the subject and the action of the verb. And we had active already, so let's look at the blackboard and see how we can relate from the active to the middle or passive. Now, in the active, we had we could have an illustration like this. He, the boy, threw the ball. Let me make that into the present. The boy throws the ball. The boy throws the ball. Now, this is active voice. Active. In that, the boy is acting. This describes the boy. So the boy is active. He is throwing the ball. So the action really goes this direction. The boy throws the ball. So the boy is doing the acting. So that's why we call it active. The boy is active. Now, if I say the ball is being thrown, no object. The ball is being thrown. Now, this is passive because the subject is passive in the process. Passive. The ball isn't doing anything, actually. The ball is being thrown. And the key to the translation in English is the word, some form of be or being. Passive. The ball is being thrown. The ball isn't doing anything. It's passive in the process. That's all we have in English as far as voice goes. We have active and we have passive. Then Greek has an additional one, which is the middle voice. Now, we would say the boy is throwing, or let's say, to keep it the same, the boy throws the ball. Now, that's the active, but when you say for himself, for himself, then you have an additional idea. You have the boy acting, but in some way that action is going back to the boy. He's what we call participating in the results of the action. So the boy throws the ball, and he does it with in some relation to himself. So in the active, the boy throws the ball, the action goes this way. In the passive, the action comes back this way. Action on the ball. Now, in the middle, the boy is acting in some way that relates to himself. So it's a reciprocal idea in the action of the verb. Active, passive, middle. Now, look at the way Machen says it in this lesson. On page, bottom page 57, paragraph 109. 3 voices in Greek, active, middle, and passive. The active and passive voices are used in English. He leaves it there. Then, the middle voice represents a subject as acting in some way that concerns itself or acting upon itself in some way. All he's simply saying is, he uses the illustration, I wash myself. Well, that's it's not easy, usually that easy to do. Now, his translation in paragraph 110 of the middle shows you, Liome, I loose or I am loosing for myself. You loose for yourself. He looses for himself, and so forth. So, for himself is the key to translating the middle. Then in the paragraph 112, you see the forms, and then you see, I am being loosed. That's the passive. The passive has the idea of being, and that's always the key in English. I am being loosed, you are being loosed, he is being loosed. We have the forms over here on the chart. We'd like to look at those and see how they relate. Remember, this is the middle or passive. Middle or passive, same form, so that you can't tell whether it's middle or passive in the present tense. Same endings, me, I, te, methus, te, unde. Remember, that's the D sound, unde. So, me, I, te, methus, te, unde. This will be either middle or passive. Now, in the exercises, Machen tells us, when it could be either middle or passive by form, translate it passive. We will not translate anything middle in Machen. Okay? We will translate nothing middle in Machen. So if it could be either middle or passive, translate it passive. Okay? So these are the forms, both middle and passive. Learn those. Learn them. The tape will show you me, I, te. We leave out the variable vowel. Metha, ste, de. Leaving out the variable vowel. That reminds me, I haven't told you what the variable vowel is. Might as well tell you. This is the omicron or the epsilon that comes between the stem and the ending. It's either omicron or epsilon, variable vowel it's called. It will be omicron before a me or a ni. It will be epsilon before everything else. Omicron before me and ni, and epsilon before everything else as a sigma or a tau. Okay? That's the variable vowel. Now, in the workbook, we have a page, several pages you want to get caught up on. first of all, we talked about the active, middle, and passive. We already wrote in the active before, back in chapter 3. Now, the middle is the subject acting and then in some way participating in the results of the action. Subject active, but participating in the results of the action. That's middle voice. Passive, the subject is being acted upon. Subject acted upon. So subject acting in some way participating in the results of the action, and then passive, the subject being acted upon. You should have that on page 2 of your workbook. Then we have another page, page 23, that I want you to begin to work on. Page 23 of your workbook. And you see here these are the primary tenses, these are the secondary tenses. It would be helpful if you wrote that in there. Primary tenses, secondary tenses. Primary, secondary. We just use that as a way of indicating, differentiating between them. Now, the primary tenses are going to have all basically the same endings. The secondary tenses are going to have basically the same endings. And before long, in this discussion, this section of the book, we'll fill in this whole chart. By chapter 16, we'll have it all, we'll have it all filled in by chapter 16. So we're going to go really fast on verbs now. So you can fill in the present tense now, both active, middle, and passive. You should put in here, lio, liis, lii, liomen, liate, liusi. Then your ones you just got, liome, I, te, methasteunde. And then this will be the same. You can either write it in again or just say same, because middle and passive are the same in the present tense. So write those in. Now, we have also certain characteristics. There are a verb can be divided up into certain parts, like a stem, a variable vowel, an ending. And we have another page of the workbook that has that chart on it. And we will put those parts on as well. Use, for the active, use liomen, liomen. That is, we're using the first person plural, liomen. Now, this line here is for the name of the parts. In other words, you have liomen here. Li is, well, I think what I'll do is I'll let you write that in, liomen there. Write liome here, liome. That's the first person singular of the middle. And then liome here, first person singular of the passive. So you have liomen, liome, liome. Write those in there. Then we will go to the board and show you what those forms are. So, you have in the active, liomen, first plural, liomen. Now, we have it divided like this. Now, on the line underneath, you have a blank, and the name of the parts is as follows. This is the present stem. So just right here, present. Need to abbreviate. Present stem. Present stem. This is the variable vowel. We'll just put a VV there. Variable vowel. And then primary active endings. Primary active endings. Present stem, variable vowel, primary active endings. That's for the active. Then I ask you to write also liome. Liome. This will be the present stem, variable vowel, and primary middle or passive endings. Primary, middle, or passive endings. Present stem, variable vowel, primary, middle, or passive endings. Leo man. And then for the passive, you can put either same or write the same thing in there, because they are the same. That will take care of that particular page of the workbook. Now, we want to look at some grammar that we get in this chapter. Paragraphs 114 and 115 are similar. 114 talks about epo with the genitive. Epo with the genitive expresses agent, the agent by which an action is performed. Now, this usage occurs principally with the passive voice, and that's why we have it brought up here. Remember, I had the sentence on the board, the boy let's say hits. The boy hits the ball. Now, that's active. But if I want to make that passive and get the whole point across, then I would say the ball is being hit. And you know, once you see the being, that you have a passive there. The ball is being hit. But then that doesn't tell me the whole story. I said up here, the boy hits the ball. Now, the ball is being hit, but it doesn't tell me who is doing it. And so, the subject of the active sentence then becomes the agent in the passive sentence, being hit by the boy. So, the boy then becomes the agent, and this is shown in English by the preposition by. In Greek, by the preposition epo. So that's why it's used with the passive generally, because it's showing the agent by which something is done. You don't need to show the agent in an active sentence, because the agent is the subject. It's doing the acting. So epo with the genitive will show agency. In fact, you want to write in there not just agency, but personal agency, because we're going to distinguish between the agent and the means just that way. The agent is the personal agent. If it's a person doing it, it will be epo with the genitive. Now, so that will be just diagrammed under the verb. Then, paragraph 115 talks about the dative of means. The simple dative without any preposition sometimes expresses means or instrument. Now, look at the illustration. They are being raised up by the word of the Lord. Now, the to logo, that's the dative of means. There's nothing to go with it. It doesn't have any preposition there. Simply to logo should be translated by means of the word of the Lord, or sometimes simply by the word of the Lord. Now that leads to a question then. If you have the English word by, then are you going to use epo with the genitive, or are you going to use just plain dative of means? Well, the key is, if it is a person, use epo with the genitive, because that is the agent, the personal agent. If it is not a person, then it will be the dative of means, and you'll use simply the dative of that particular thing, whatever it is. Now, his illustration then would show you, and you would diagram that under the verb. So, mark this down. This isn't in your workbook anywhere. Dative of means is diagrammed under the verb. So in that sentence, you'd say, they are being raised up, and then your to logo would go under the verb, logo, to. They're being raised up by the word. So then, of course, it would be of the Lord, kidiu, to, by the word of the Lord. But the key is that under the verb, the dative of means, also called the instrument. If we were using an 8-case system, this would be the instrumental case. So this is dative of means or instrument. Later on, when you slip into a second year, you'll probably go to the 8 cases, and this would be called the instrumental then. But don't worry about it now. It's simply the dative of means. The means by which something is done. Now, Paragraph 116 talks about deponent verbs. The word deponent means weak. And these verbs are weak verbs in that they do not have any active forms. They only have middle or passive forms with active meaning. Say that again. They are middle or passive forms with only active meanings. Look back at your vocabulary. Apokrinome, I answer, is deponent. See that DEP there? Deponent. Now, it doesn't have an omega in the vocabulary. It has a me. It doesn't have any omega form. Yinome, deponent. Now, there's no omega there. There's no active form. It's only a middle or passive form, but it has active meaning. I become is not passive, it's active. The same is true of erkame and porevame. Now, it's interesting that these words are also deponent in English. You may have never thought about that, but the word I go. Did you ever try to make I go passive? I was good. Or, you just can't do it. I became. I become is active. How do you say I was becomed? It just doesn't work. So they're deponent in English. Many of them that are deponent in Greek are also deponent in English. These words simply will have a middle or passive form. They will have only active meanings. That's what paragraph 116 is about. Middle or passive in form with active meaning. Now, for instance, he shows you porevame, passive in form like leome, but it's active in meaning like leo. You'll have to work with these in the exercises, I'm afraid, and make a few mistakes, and then you'll say, aha, that's deponent, and that'll be helpful to you. Then, in 117, we have verbs, compound verbs. Sometimes a verb will be made up of two letters, like we had in the exercise. We had erkame, which means I go, and then ex erkame means I go out. So you get the meaning from the component, the two words of which it is made. Ek porevame. That's his example in paragraph 117. Porevame, I go. Ek, I go out. Now that works fine there. But some words don't work like that. For instance, apokrinome. Now apo is from, krino is judge. The word apokrinome means I answer. Well, you can get a little bit, it's a little close. I judge from something, therefore I answer. But that isn't as easy to say as ek porevame would be. We have the same thing in English again. Do not make the mistake that just because two words are put together, that you can put the two meanings together, and that's the meaning of the word. It's fine for some words, but did you ever see a horse fly? You know what a horse is, you know what a fly is, and you know what flying is, but a horse fly just doesn't work. A board walk. Did you ever see a board walk? Well, it doesn't work. The same is true of a lot of words in Greek. Don't try to put them together just because they happen to be made up of two words. We call this etymology. Don't get your meaning strictly out of the etymology. How do you know that boardwalk doesn't mean a board walks? By the way it's used. So you look at the context in which the word is used, and you arrive at the meaning in that way. Now, you know, when I'm getting so strong on this, that I have some illustrations in mind. I do. I won't give them to you now. But there are certain words in the New Testament which make all the difference in the world if you understand the meaning of the word in the usage, the way it's used in the New Testament, and not simply by the etymology of the word. So remember that about compounds. Sometimes you can learn by the two words the meaning of it, sometimes you can't. Now, paragraph 118. U is the negative, and it always precedes the word that it negatives. Make sure you do that. So, and you might want to add in your book, and is diagrammed under that word. It precedes the word that it negates, and it's diagrammed under that word. Now, it makes a difference sometimes, the emphasis that a writer has when he uses the negative. Now, Jesus, when he talked to the men about, to the Pharisees, about the bread in the wilderness, our translation would say, Jesus did not, or Jesus would be saying, God did not Moses did not give them that manna. Moses did not give them that bread. That isn't what it says. It says, not Moses gave them that bread. And his emphasis is, it was not Moses. He's not saying that they did not get the bread, or the bread wasn't given to them. He's saying it wasn't Moses that gave it to them. And so you need to make sure that you know the negative, where the negative goes, what it negates, and then diagram it under that word, because your diagram is going to show the translation and the interpretation. Then paragraph 119, various cases with verbs. We hinted at that at the beginning. Akuo may take the genitive. He gives an example. Akuo tis phonis. I hear the voice. It could be akuo tin phonin, because it can take both. But tis phonis is a very proper way to render that. And that tis phonis will go in the object spot. It won't go in the, it won't go under it or anywhere. It will be here as an object. Phonis. Tis. Say. This being a genitive is the object of the verb akuo, because akuo may take the genitive. You'll find the same is true for apokrinome. Apokrinome takes the dative. To apostolo, I answer the apostle. Again then, the dative would be put up on the line just where we have the phonis, and that is the object of the verb apokrinome. That means then that we've learned some more uses for the cases, and I'd like to put them in your workbook on page 5A of the workbook. Page 5A, we're going to learn some more, put down some more uses of the cases, so we get them all together. Now so far, you have in this page, the nominative, subject, the genitive, possessive, the dative, indirect object, the accusative, direct object. Now, we're going to add something. We've already added, or we should have added, for imi or for yiname, object of a linking verb, or sorry, the complement of a linking verb. Subject and complement. That's spelled with an E. C-O-M-P-L-E, complement. Spelled with an E. It's not saying something nice about it. It's completing the meaning. So, complement of a linking verb. And the two linking verbs that we have are imi and yiname. So, two uses for the nominative so far. The genitive, we already have possessive here. We should also have object of a preposition. Remember that? Object of a preposition for the genitive. Possession, object of a preposition. And we could put in here direct agent. It won't be different than the preposition, but there is direct agent, paragraph 114. And fourth, object of special verbs. Possessive, object of a preposition, personal agent, personal direct agent, and object of special verbs like akuo or artico. All right, now the dative. Dative, we had indirect object. We also could have in there object of a preposition. Remember, in takes the dative. Object of a preposition for the dative. We learned in this lesson that we can also have the dative of means or instrument. Paragraph 115, dative of means. And we also learned that it can be object of special verbs like apokrinome. So we have four uses for the dative. We didn't get any new use for the accusative. We only have the one object of the verb. So you remember that in the vocabulary we pointed out that OT is a coordinating conjunction. Now we've had, as a subordinating conjunction, we've had coordinating conjunctions up until now, but OT is subordinating, meaning that the clause that is introduced by OT is going to be in some way modifying something in the main clause. For instance, we've already had ke, we had the, Allah, and these are coordinating conjunctions. They will be joining two things which are parallel, and they will simply be joining, not a part of either one of these clauses. However, in a subordinating conjunction, there is the conjunction is a part of the clause. It introduces the clause in that way, not really a part of speech in that sense, but it introduces the clause and then shows us what we're to do with that particular clause. For instance, with OT, we can have either one of two uses. It can be either a noun clause, OT introducing a noun clause, translated as that, or over here as a adverbial clause translated because. Now, Machen gave you both of those meanings, because and that. If it's that, it's giving the content of the object of the verb. For instance, you say that you are being saved from by the Lord. You are being saved by the Lord. This is very similar to one of your exercises in your homework for this time. You say that you are being saved. Now, it shows what you are saying. It answers the question, what? You say what? You say that you are being saved by the Lord. This is really indirect discourse. Then, if it answers the question, or if it means because, it will answer the question, why? Why is it happening? Because the church has peace. Why? Because it is being saved by the Lord. This should be an off T, because it's the ecclesia is the antecedent. Because she is being saved by the Lord. Because. So when you have the OT clause, remember the OT introduces a clause, and it will be either noun, answering the question what, translated that, or it will be because, adverbial, answering the question why. The rest of Lesson 10, I think, will be very interesting for you. The exercises are, we'll be giving you these new things, and we have quite a few new things in this chapter. And he will also bring in the some of the older things that you may have almost forgotten, and he'll bring them in, and then he'll test you to see if you're really staying awake. So be careful with your homework. Do them the usual way, the 10 and the 5, and then we'll be ready for another tense next time, and maybe we'll even have a little chorus in Greek.